In 1916, the United States Department of Agriculture published an extraordinary technical bulletin, numbered 400, for that confidently predicted hemp would become the single most important agricultural crop in all of American history within just 20 short years. The comprehensive government report meticulously documented that one single acre of cultivated hemp produced as much usable paper fiber as for full acres of mature timber forest. It explained in scientific detail that hemp fiber was demonstrably stronger than any other natural textile material known to modern science at that time. It carefully detailed how hemp grew rapidly to full harvest maturity in just 4 short months, compared to the 20 long years required for timber trees to reach harvestable size. It projected with considerable confidence that American farmers would soon be cultivating millions of productive acres of the versatile crop that human civilizations had grown continuously for well over 10,000 documented years. The optimistic government scientists who researched and wrote Bulletin 404 could not possibly have imagined what would happen next. Within just 21 years of that hopeful government publication, hemp would be effectively banned across the entire United States through carefully crafted legislation written by the very industries that hemp directly threatened to replace completely. The strongest natural fiber on Earth would be classified alongside the most dangerous drugs. Farmers who had grown it for generations would face prison sentences for planting the same crop their grandparents had cultivated legally. The conspiracy that killed American hemp involved 2 of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the country working together to protect business empires that hemp cultivation would have destroyed. William Randolph Hearst owned millions of acres of timber that supplied his newspaper publishing empire. DuPont Chemical had just patented nylon and was preparing to dominate the synthetic textile market. Together, they orchestrated a propaganda campaign and legislative assault that removed their most dangerous competitor from existence. Hemp did not disappear because it was dangerous to humans. It disappeared because it was dangerous to corporate profits. This is the story of the fiber that outperforms every industrial material it competes against, the crop that grows where nothing else will, and the conspiracy that buried it for nearly a century to protect the fortunes of men who died decades ago. If this knowledge matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. Let's begin. The physical properties of hemp fiber exceed cotton, synthetic textiles, and even structural steel when measured by any objective scientific standard. Hemp fiber tensile strength measures approximately 55,000 pounds per square inch. This exceeds mild steel at 36,000 pounds per square inch when compared by weight rather than cross-sectional area. A rope of hemp, the same weight as a steel cable, will support significantly more load before breaking. The strength advantage becomes even more dramatic when considering that hemp is biodegradable while steel rusts and synthetic ropes degrade in sunlight. Cotton fiber strength measures approximately 30,000 pounds per square inch, barely half that of hemp. Cotton textiles wear out faster, tear more easily, and cannot withstand the mechanical stresses that hemp handles routinely. Work clothing made from hemp lasts years longer than equivalent cotton garments. Ropes and rigging made from hemp served navies for centuries, because no other fiber could match its durability under harsh marine conditions. The softness of hemp fiber actually increases with washing and wear rather than degrading. New hemp textiles feel stiffer than cotton because the fiber bundles have not yet separated and softened through mechanical action. After several wash cycles, hemp fabric becomes softer than cotton while retaining its superior strength. The material that starts firm becomes comfortable, while the material that starts soft wears thin and tears. Hemp fiber is naturally resistant to mold, mildew, and ultraviolet degradation. Cotton absorbs moisture and provides an ideal environment for fungal growth. Synthetic fibers break down under sunlight exposure and release microplastic particles. Hemp resists both biological and UV degradation, lasting decades in conditions that would destroy other materials within years. Thermal regulation properties of hemp exceed both cotton and synthetics. Hemp fabric breathes more efficiently than cotton, moving moisture away from the body and allowing air circulation. It insulates better than cotton in cold conditions, while remaining cooler in hot weather. A single hemp garment provides comfort across a wider temperature range than any cotton or synthetic alternative. Every objective measure of textile performance favors hemp over the materials that replaced it. The switch from hemp to cotton and synthetics did not occur because better materials became available. It occurred because inferior materials became more profitable for the specific corporations that controlled policy decisions in 1937. The agricultural advantages of hemp over cotton are so substantial that the comparison embarrasses the entire modern textile industry. Hemp grows to harvest maturity in approximately 120 days from seed. This rapid growth cycle allows multiple harvests per year in warm climates and ensures that even northern regions can produce reliable annual yields. Cotton requires a longer growing season and is limited to southern latitudes. Hemp cultivation is possible virtually anywhere that conventional agriculture succeeds. Water requirements for hemp are approximately half those of cotton. Cotton is one of the most water-intensive crops in modern agriculture, requiring thousands of gallons per pound of finished fiber. Hemp's deep taproot system accesses groundwater that shallow-rooted cotton cannot reach. In drought-prone regions where cotton irrigation strains water supplies, hemp produces equivalent yields with minimal supplemental watering. Pesticide and herbicide requirements for hemp approach zero under proper management. Cotton consumes approximately 16% of global insecticide production, despite occupying less than 3% of agricultural land. The crop is devastated by boll weevils and other pests that require constant chemical intervention. Hemp's natural pest resistance eliminates the need for insecticides in most growing conditions, and its rapid, dense growth shades out weeds without herbicides. Soil health improves under hemp cultivation rather than degrading as it does under cotton. Hemp's deep taproot breaks up compacted soil and improves drainage. Leaf drop during growth adds organic matter to the surface. The root system leaves channels that benefit subsequent crops. Cotton depletes soil nutrients and often requires synthetic fertilizer inputs that further degrade long-term soil health. Marginal land unsuitable for other crops often produces excellent hemp harvests. Abandoned farmland, depleted soils, and regions with poor water access can all support hemp cultivation. The plant is remarkably tolerant of challenging conditions that would prevent cotton or grain production. Farmers with low-quality land can generate income from hemp that no other crop would provide. The agricultural case for hemp over cotton is overwhelming by every environmental and economic measure. Cotton dominates global textile production, not because it performs better, but because the industries that profit from cotton eliminated the competition before most living people were born. The 10,000-year history of hemp cultivation demonstrates that this crop built human civilization itself. The earliest archaeological evidence of hemp cultivation dates to approximately 8000 BCE in what is now Taiwan. Ancient Chinese texts describe hemp as one of the 5 sacred grains alongside rice, wheat, barley, and soybeans. The plant provided fiber for clothing, rope for construction, seeds for nutrition, and medicine for healing. No other crop served as many essential functions across such a wide range of human needs. Every major civilization in recorded history relied on hemp for critical applications. Egyptian pharaohs were buried with hemp cloth. Roman legions depended on hemp rope and canvas. Medieval European economies revolved around hemp production for maritime industries. The word canvas itself derives from cannabis, reflecting the material's dominance in sail production for centuries. The American colonies mandated hemp cultivation by law during certain periods. Virginia, Massachusetts, and Connecticut all required farmers to grow hemp to ensure adequate supplies for rope and textile production. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson both cultivated hemp on their plantations and corresponded about optimal growing techniques. The founding fathers of the United States were literally hemp farmers. Hemp remained the dominant source of rope, canvas, and durable textiles throughout the Age of Sail. Every ship that explored the world, every wagon that crossed continents, every farm that tilled soil depended on hemp products for essential functions. The material was so fundamental to human activity that civilization without hemp was essentially unthinkable until synthetic alternatives emerged in the 20th century. The sudden criminalization of hemp in 1937 represented the elimination of a crop that had served humanity for 100 centuries. This was not a minor agricultural adjustment. It was the removal of a foundational element of human material culture at the intrament of corporations that had existed for less than 50 years. The conspiracy that destroyed American hemp involved coordinated action between DuPont Chemical, William Randolph Hearst, and corrupt government officials. DuPont had patented nylon in 1935 and was preparing to revolutionize the textile industry with synthetic fibers. The company had invested enormous sums in research, manufacturing facilities, and marketing preparation for products that would compete directly with natural fibers. Their business plan depended on displacing hemp, cotton, and other natural materials with patented synthetics that would generate ongoing royalty income. Hemp represented an existential threat to DuPont's synthetic textile strategy, a natural fiber that was stronger, more durable, and cheaper to produce than nylon would have destroyed the market for synthetic alternatives before it could develop. Farmers could grow hemp themselves, while nylon required purchasing from DuPont. The corporation needed hemp eliminated to protect billions of dollars in projected future revenue. William Randolph Hearst owned vast timber holdings that supplied paper for his newspaper empire. The 1916 USDA bulletin predicting hemp's rise threatened to make his timber investments worthless. 1 acre of hemp producing the paper equivalent of 4 acres of trees would have collapsed timber prices and destroyed the value of land Hearst had spent decades accumulating. Hearst's newspapers launched a propaganda campaign that redefined hemp as a dangerous drug. The word marijuana, previously unused in American English, suddenly appeared throughout Hearst publications, describing a terrifying new threat to American youth. Stories of violence, insanity, and racial corruption filled newspapers read by millions of Americans. The campaign never mentioned that marijuana was simply the same hemp plant that farmers had grown for centuries. Harry Anslinger, head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, provided the government connection. Anslinger was connected to DuPont through his wife's family and dependent on manufactured drug scares. He testified before Congress using Hearst newspaper articles as evidence of marijuana's dangers. He explicitly excluded industrial hemp from his concerns during committee hearings, but ensured the resulting legislation made no such distinction. The Marihuana Tax Act of 1937 imposed regulatory burdens that made legal hemp cultivation effectively impossible. The law required tax stamps for hemp production that the government then refused to issue. Farmers who had grown the crop legally for generations suddenly faced federal prosecution for continuing traditional agricultural practices. Within years, American hemp cultivation had essentially ceased. The conspiracy achieved its objectives perfectly. DuPont's nylon captured the synthetic textile market without competition from superior natural alternatives. Hearst's timber retained its value as paper production shifted entirely to wood pulp. Anslinger's bureau justified its existence through marijuana enforcement for the next several decades. The environmental catastrophe that followed hemp prohibition continues accelerating almost 90 years later. Cotton cultivation now consumes approximately 200 billion gallons of water annually worldwide. Rivers have been drained to irrigate cotton fields. Ancient aquifers are being depleted faster than rainfall can replenish them. Water that could support human populations instead produces a fiber inferior to the hemp that grows with rainfall alone. Pesticide pollution from cotton production contaminates waterways across every cotton-growing region. The chemicals that keep cotton alive poison ecosystems downstream. Fish populations collapse. Drinking water requires extensive treatment. Human health effects include elevated cancer rates in agricultural communities. None of this contamination would occur under hemp cultivation. Synthetic textile production generates microplastic pollution that has infiltrated every ecosystem on Earth. Nylon and polyester fibers shed during washing and enter waterways that eventually reach oceans. Microplastics have been found in the deepest ocean trenches and the most remote mountain glaciers. They accumulate in the food chain and are now present in human blood and tissue samples worldwide. Landfills overflow with synthetic garments that will persist for centuries. Fast fashion business models generate billions of discarded garments annually that cannot biodegrade. Clothing that cost dollars to produce will occupy landfill space for 500 years. Hemp textiles would decompose within months of disposal, returning nutrients to soil rather than persisting as waste. The climate impact of petroleum-based synthetic fibers adds to the mounting environmental destruction. Nylon and polyester production requires fossil fuel inputs and generates greenhouse gas emissions. The entire synthetic textile industry contributes to climate change that threatens agricultural systems worldwide. Hemp cultivation actually sequesters carbon, removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere rather than adding them. Every environmental crisis associated with modern textile production traces back to the 1937 decision to prohibit hemp. The superior crop was banned. The inferior crops and synthetics took over. The planet is paying the price for corporate decisions made 90 years ago to protect profits that the original conspirators have long since ceased to enjoy. The modern revival of hemp cultivation has begun, despite continued resistance from industries that benefit from prohibition. The 2018 Farm Bill legalized industrial hemp production across the United States for the first time since 1937. Farmers can now legally grow hemp containing less than 0.3% THC. The psychoactive compound that provided the excuse for original prohibition. Cultivation acreage has expanded dramatically since legalization. Processing infrastructure is developing to convert raw hemp into textiles, building materials, and other products. The textile industry has been slow to embrace hemp despite its obvious advantages. Supply chains built around cotton and synthetics resist disruption regardless of environmental or performance benefits. Manufacturing equipment calibrated for existing materials requires modification for hemp processing. The corporations that profit from current systems have no incentive to facilitate transition to alternatives. Consumer demand for sustainable textiles is gradually overcoming industry resistance. Awareness of cotton's environmental impact and synthetic microplastic pollution has created market demand for natural alternatives. Hemp textiles marketed as sustainable and durable command premium prices that justify development investment. The market that DuPont and Hearst destroyed is slowly rebuilding, despite their corporate successors' continued resistance. Small-scale hemp processing operations are emerging to serve growing demand. Entrepreneurs who recognize hemp's potential are building the infrastructure that large corporations refuse to develop. Decentralized processing keeps value in farming communities rather than concentrating it in corporate manufacturing facilities. The industry that prohibition destroyed is being recreated from the ground up by people who understand what was taken. The hemp seed waiting to germinate represents agricultural independence from the corporations that have controlled textile production for nearly a century. A farmer could grow hemp on land unsuitable for other crops and produce fiber that outlasts anything the textile industry sells. They would require no irrigation in most climates. They would apply no pesticides or herbicides. They would improve their soil while harvesting a valuable crop. They would participate in rebuilding an industry that was deliberately destroyed to protect corporate profits. DuPont and Hearst made absolutely sure that farmer would never learn this option existed. They manufactured propaganda. They purchased legislation. They criminalized a plant that had served humanity for 10,000 years. They protected their profits at the cost of environmental destruction that continues worsening today. Every cotton garment you purchase supports the system that replaced something better. Every synthetic textile sheds microplastics into ecosystems that cannot process them. Every acre of irrigated cotton depletes water that communities need to survive. The alternatives are worse by every measure, but they remain dominant because better options were made illegal. Better than cotton by every textile performance measure. Stronger than steel when compared by equivalent weight. Grows abundantly on marginal land without requiring irrigation or chemical pesticides. Biodegrades completely and returns nutrients to soil when finally discarded after years of durable service. The textile giants buried this remarkable crop for 90 continuous years because your agricultural independence and self-sufficiency threatened their carefully protected corporate profits. Now you know exactly what they buried from American farmers and consumers. Now you understand precisely why they went to such extraordinary lengths to bury it so thoroughly and completely. If this opens something important for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every single like and share spreads what DuPont and Hearst conspired to keep hidden from farmers and consumers forever. See you in the next one.